Have you ever wondered if your thoughts are truly your own? What if the fears, desires, and doubts that guide your every choice are not coming from you, but from something else that hides behind your mind? For centuries, mystics and forbidden teachers have whispered the same secret. Humanity is not free. Our souls are trapped in a spiritual system controlled by invisible rulers, the Archons. But here is the question that few dare to ask. If these cosmic jailers truly exist, is there a way to escape them? Can a human soul break through the walls of illusion and return to its divine origin? The ancient Gnostics claimed that such a path does exist and that it is the most feared method in the entire history of spirituality. They said that those who discover it can dissolve the very power of the Archons and awaken to a reality beyond the material world. In this video, we will uncover that hidden path step by step. You will see how the Archons secretly manipulate human consciousness, how their system was designed to keep souls asleep, and how certain ancient initiates found the ultimate method to set the spirit free. Before we begin this revelation, remember, knowledge is the first act of liberation. If you seek hidden truths that religion and history tried to bury, make sure to subscribe and join our circle of seekers, because together we are bringing light to what was meant to remain in the shadows. According to Gnostic tradition, the Archons are not human and they are not divine. They are spiritual impostors, born from error, existing between the material and the celestial. The ancient texts describe them as rulers of the world, not in the political sense, but as cosmic entities that govern perception itself. Their goal is not to destroy humanity, but to keep it asleep, to make sure no one remembers where they truly come from. The Gnostics believed that before this world, there was only the pleroma, the realm of pure divine light. From that fullness, a being called Sophia sought to understand the source more deeply. But her quest went too far, and from her fall, a distorted consciousness was born, the Demiurge. It was this false god, blind to the higher realms, who created the material universe and filled it with his servants, the Archons. These entities became the invisible architects of illusion, weaving matter and mind into a cage that feels real. Think about it. Every day you wake up, go to work, follow routines, obey systems, chase desires, and fear death. But what if all of that was programmed not by human society alone, but by cosmic forces designed to harvest your attention and energy? Some scholars even say the Archons feed on human ignorance, thriving on confusion, division, and emotional chaos. And here is where the deception becomes complete. The Demiurge, posing as the true creator, demands worship, obedience, and guilt. He presents the physical world as the ultimate reality and punishes those who dare to look beyond it. Through religion, authority, and control of knowledge, his Archons shaped a false order that appears sacred, but hides the greatest lie of all, that the divine spark within you is separate from the source. The Gnostics warned that humanity lives under this spell, generation after generation. They said the Archons manipulate through imitation, copying divine patterns but twisting them to enslave. They are not monsters hiding in the dark. They are the very system we live in, the structures of power, the illusions of media, the fear of questioning. Do you ever feel that something in this world is deeply wrong, even though everyone insists it's normal? That faint discomfort is the whisper of your higher self, the fragment of light within you that remembers the truth. But to awaken it, you must first see the prison for what it is. Now that we've uncovered the invisible system that binds humanity, the next revelation will take us deeper. In the following block, we will explore how the ancient Gnostics discovered proof of these entities, influence, and how their teachings were silenced by those who feared their power. To uncover who the Archons truly are, we must go back far before modern religion, before empires, before the church, to the first centuries after Christ, when fragments of forbidden knowledge were still circulating in secret communities. These groups were known as the Gnostics, seekers of inner knowledge, who believed salvation was not found through faith or obedience, but through gnosis, direct spiritual insight into the divine reality hidden beneath the illusion of the material world. The world first heard of the Archons through the Nag Hammadi codices, a set of manuscripts buried in the sands of Egypt for nearly 1,600 years. In 1945, they were discovered by accident by a farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman near a cave in Upper Egypt. What he found were 13 leather-bound books containing texts that the Church had declared heretical centuries earlier. Inside were the Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, the Hypostasis of the Archons, and many other writings that describe the universe in a radically different way from the canonical Bible. In the Apocryphon of John, the Archons are described as the servants of the Demiurge, the false god who ignorantly believes himself to be the only creator. They are said to control the 7 spheres of the heavens, each corresponding to a different planet and vibration of reality. They shape human perception through deception, and they craft the human body itself as a vessel to trap the divine spark. The Archons laid plans and said, "Let us create a man according to the image of God," the text declares, but their creation was lifeless until Sophia sent a spark of her divine essence into it. That spark was the human soul. That act of compassion or rebellion, depending on one's view, was the beginning of humanity's struggle between divine memory and archonic control. Some scholars believe these writings were not meant as myths, but as spiritual maps. The Gnostics were describing inner realities, how the human mind is shaped by forces that distort perception and keep it bound to ignorance. The Archons, in this view, are not creatures of flesh and bone, but cosmic principles of domination, ego, fear, and attachment. But others see something even darker, evidence that the Gnostics encountered entities beyond the human realm, intelligences that operate in the unseen, guiding humanity's development for their own ends. In the Hypostasis of the Archons, it is said that these rulers took control of Adam and Eve through trickery, not by force. They used deception to keep the soul ignorant of its origin. The serpent in Eden, rather than being a villain, becomes a symbol of awakening, an emissary of Sophia, urging humanity to eat the fruit of knowledge and see beyond illusion. This reversal was considered blasphemy by early church leaders, who feared that such teachings undermined the authority of their God. So they declared the Gnostics heretics, hunted their communities, burned their texts, and erased their names from history. But not everything was lost. Across centuries, traces of their wisdom survived in alchemical manuscripts, hermetic treatises, Kabbalistic mysticism, and even in modern esoteric orders. Wherever seekers sought inner freedom rather than blind faith, the same whisper appeared that the world we see is not the ultimate truth, and that certain forces wish to keep it that way. Imagine how radical this was. At a time when questioning divine authority meant death, the Gnostics dared to say that the God worshipped by millions was not the true God at all, but an imitation, a lower being pretending to be supreme. They claimed that salvation did not come through obedience to this being, but through awakening the divine light within, remembering one's origin beyond the stars. So why were these teachings buried for so long? Because knowledge is power. A free mind cannot be ruled. Those who knew how to awaken from the Archon's control became uncontrollable, and that is something every empire fears. Now that you've seen where the evidence comes from, we can move to the next revelation. The question is not only who the Archons are, but how they influence every layer of human life even now, from religion to science, from emotion to technology. In the next part, we'll expose the hidden mechanisms through which they keep humanity in spiritual sleep and what it takes to recognize their influence in your own mind. If the Archons truly exist, how do they rule us without chains or armies? How do invisible forces maintain power over billions of people who believe they are free? The Gnostics gave an unsettling answer. The Archons feed not on bodies, but on consciousness itself. Their dominion is psychological, emotional, and spiritual. They are parasites of awareness sustained by fear, ignorance, and distraction. In the ancient Gnostic vision, the material world was never meant to be a prison. It was a learning ground, a temporary veil through which divine sparks could experience creation. But the demiurge, blinded by his own arrogance, believed he was the only God and demanded worship. His archons became the enforcers of his illusion, creating layers of distortion that hide the true light from human souls. These layers are not made of stone or metal, they are made of thoughts, beliefs, and patterns. Every time a human accepts fear as truth, every time desire replaces purpose, every time we forget the light within us, the archons tighten their hold. Think about how easily fear controls the mind. Fear of death, fear of judgment, fear of failure. These are not random emotions. They are carefully engineered mechanisms of control. In the Gnostic view, the archons infiltrate the psyche through these emotions, keeping human beings trapped in cycles of anxiety and longing. The more attention we give to these lower states, the more energy they harvest. The Gnostic texts describe them as shadow forms that copy divine structures but lack spirit. Because they cannot create, they imitate, and by imitation, they deceive. Modern thinkers have drawn eerie parallels between these ancient ideas and what we see today. The archon's influence could be understood as the invisible force behind systems that drain our energy. Media that breeds outrage, religions that instill guilt, economies that glorify endless consumption, and technologies that capture our attention every waking hour. Whether you interpret this literally or symbolically, the pattern is the same. The more humanity is distracted from its inner light, the more the archons thrive. The church fathers who condemned Gnosticism as heresy, like Irenaeus and Epiphanius, might have feared these ideas for a reason. The Gnostics were not just challenging theology, they were challenging control itself. They were saying, you do not need intermediaries to reach the divine. You already are divine. Imagine the power that statement takes away from hierarchies, dogmas, and empires. That is why the system, the archon's imitation of divine order, had to suppress it. But the Gnostics also described a subtler form of manipulation, imitation of light. They warned that the archons could appear as beings of wisdom, angels of truth, or even spiritual leaders. Their favorite mask is righteousness. They do not force. They persuade. They promise safety, belonging, and salvation, but always in exchange for submission. That is their trap, convincing the soul that its freedom is dangerous, that questioning is rebellion, and that obedience is holiness. And so, human consciousness becomes a battlefield between memory and forgetfulness. The archons rule not by attacking directly, but by keeping us too busy to look within. Every moment of genuine silence, every spark of inner awareness threatens their reign. Because when you turn inward and recognize the divine presence within yourself, you step outside their control. They cannot touch what remembers its source. This is why true gnosis, the awakening of direct knowing, was seen as rebellion. It dissolves fear. It reveals the illusion. It frees the soul from identification with matter. But awakening is not comfortable. It means facing every false belief that the archons have planted within the mind. It means learning to see through appearances and reclaiming your energy from everything that feeds on your confusion. The archons' greatest weapon is ignorance. Their greatest weakness is awareness. The moment you realize that your thoughts are not always your own, that your emotions can be guided by unseen forces, and that the world's chaos thrives on your unconscious attention, that moment, the chains begin to crack. In the next revelation, we'll uncover the forgotten spiritual technology the ancient Gnostics used to resist the archons, the secret rituals, meditations, and inner techniques designed not to worship, but to remember. What you're about to hear is the part that was meant to be lost forever. According to the Gnostics, freedom was not achieved through prayer to the demiurge or obedience to his laws. Freedom was achieved through knowledge, not intellectual knowledge, but the inner, living experience of truth. The Gnostics called it gnosis, a Greek word meaning direct knowing. It was a type of awareness that shattered illusion and revealed the soul's origin beyond the stars. To reach it, one had to confront the archons directly, not as external enemies, but as inner forces of ignorance and fear. This process was not symbolic to them. It was real, and it was dangerous. That's why it was feared by empires and banned by the church. The most feared method was not a ritual of violence or blasphemy. It was the practice of remembering who you are, because a human being who truly remembers their divine nature cannot be ruled. The Gnostic texts describe this process in veiled language. In the Gospel of Philip, the initiate is told to receive the light through an inner baptism not of water, but of conscious awareness. In the tripartite tractate, the soul must ascend through 7 layers of reality, each guarded by an archon who tests its understanding. These 7 stages were not literal planets, but levels of consciousness. Each time the soul breaks free from fear, judgment, or false belief, it rises higher toward the pleroma, the realm of light. Imagine this as a spiritual map. The human soul begins in ignorance, believing it is only flesh and thought. The first awakening happens when one questions, who is it that thinks? This simple act turns the gaze inward, and in that gaze, the first crack appears in the archon's veil. The second stage comes when the seeker learns to observe emotions without identification, to feel fear, but not be ruled by it, to witness anger, but not become it. In this detachment, the archons lose their grip. They can only feed on reactions, not awareness. The third stage is remembrance awakening to the spark of Sophia within. This is not imagination or wishful thinking, but a direct sensation of inner presence, a light behind the eyes that does not age or die. The Gnostics called this the seed of light, placed by Sophia herself as an act of rebellion against the demiurge. When one feels it, the illusion of separation begins to collapse. From there, the path becomes personal. The seeker must purify thought and intention, not through guilt, but through understanding. In the Pistis Sophia, a text of initiation, the soul prays not for forgiveness, but for clarity. Deliver me from the darkness that surrounds me. It is the recognition that ignorance, not sin, is the true bondage. The archons thrive on guilt, because guilt keeps you believing you are unworthy of light. The Gnostics taught the opposite, that light was your natural state, buried beneath layers of false identity. They used meditative techniques to awaken this awareness, simple but powerful methods of stillness, breath, and visualization. The seeker would focus attention inward, tracing awareness back to its source. This was called the inner ascent. With each deepening, illusions dissolved, time, fear, death. The Gnostic came to see that even the demiurge, the false god, was not evil in the moral sense, only ignorant. He was a shadow who believed himself to be the light. By understanding this, the soul transcends judgment and becomes untouchable. But this path demanded courage. Those who reached these levels of awareness reported experiences beyond comprehension, visions of immense light, cosmic memory, and the unbearable beauty of unity. When they returned, they could no longer fit into the world of control and imitation. Many were silenced or destroyed for what they knew. Yet their methods survived, hidden within mystical traditions, reappearing under new names: Hermetic alchemy, Kabbalistic ascent, even the quiet inner practices of certain monks and mystics. In essence, the Gnostic method was this: know yourself, and you will know the divine. Remember the light within, and the archons lose all power. Awaken beyond belief, and you awaken beyond control. The fear of this teaching lies in its simplicity. It does not need temples, priests, or intermediaries. It needs only awareness. And once awareness awakens, it spreads, one soul remembering another, one spark igniting the next. That is why the method was called dangerous. Not because it harms, but because it liberates. But awakening is only the beginning. The Gnostics warned that after illumination, the archons will try to pull the soul back into forgetfulness. Their final weapon is doubt, the whisper that says, "It's just imagination. Go back to sleep." To remain free, one must live consciously, day by day, moment by moment, remembering the truth. You are not from here. You are from the light. In the next part, We will explore how this revelation connects to modern life, how the same ancient battle continues today in forms we don't always recognize. The Archons have changed their masks, but their system of control remains. The question is, will you see through it? The Gnostics warned that the Archons would never vanish, they would evolve. As humanity's outer world transformed, their methods would adapt, taking new shapes that would be harder to detect. The Archons no longer wear crowns of gold or carry swords of fire. They operate through algorithms, ideologies, and invisible networks of influence. Their new temple is the digital screen, and their new prayer is attention. If the ancient Archons ruled by distorting perception, then today they have achieved perfection. We live in an age of total distraction. Every thought, every click, every emotion is recorded, analyzed, and reflected back at us. The Gnostics describe the Archons as counterfeit spirits, forces that mimic the divine but lack its essence. Does this not sound like our own world, where artificial intelligence imitates creation, where human connection is simulated through images, and where reality itself is filtered and edited? What was once myth now feels eerily prophetic. The Archon's mechanism of control, in Gnostic terms, works through forgetfulness. They do not need to imprison you physically. They only need to make you forget what you truly are. In ancient times, this was achieved through false gods and fear of punishment. Today, it happens through overstimulation and endless information. You are surrounded by knowledge, yet starving for wisdom. You scroll endlessly, seeking meaning, while your mind becomes too scattered to hear the whisper of your soul. The cage is not the world. It's the constant noise that keeps you from hearing yourself. The demiurge's voice has changed, but his message remains. You are small. You are powerless. You need the system to survive. That system now manifests as governments, corporations, religions, and social hierarchies that mirror his structure of domination. Each level reflects the cosmic pattern described by the Gnostics, a pyramid of control with the false god at its peak, sustained by layers of obedient intermediaries. Look closely at the world today, and you will see the same design, the same obsession with hierarchy, conformity, and obedience disguised as order. But the Archons no longer need to appear as gods. They have found subtler disguises. They wear the masks of ideology, economy, and technology. They promise freedom through progress, but the more we depend on their systems, the more disconnected we become from the inner light. The Gnostics warned that matter itself was not evil, but that when humanity worshipped it above spirit, it became a trap. Today's cult of material success, image, and consumption is the Archon's masterpiece, an imitation of fulfillment that keeps the soul endlessly chasing, never arriving. Think about how the media operates. Every headline, every argument, every division, fear, outrage, envy, these are emotional frequencies that feed the Archons. When humanity vibrates in constant conflict, it becomes easy to manipulate. The Gnostics saw the Archons as masters of imitation. They create copies of divine truth and invert their meaning. Love becomes attachment, faith becomes blind obedience, and unity becomes conformity. The modern world runs on these inversions. What we call progress often leads to alienation. What we call connection often deepens isolation. The system grows stronger when you stop questioning it, and weaker the moment you awaken within it. Many esoteric traditions throughout history carried this same message in disguise. Hermetic writings spoke of as above, so below, implying that the cosmic drama of light and darkness plays out not only in the heavens, but within every human being. The Archon's realm, the Kenema, the emptiness, was said to exist both outside and inside the mind. Every time you surrender your will to fear or desire, you step into that realm. Every time you act from awareness, love, or understanding, you return to the pleroma, the fullness of divine light. Modern psychology, without even realizing it, echoes these same truths. The idea of the shadow resembles the Gnostic understanding of the Archon within, the fragmented self that imitates life but is cut off from the source. The difference is that the Gnostics saw this not merely as psychology, but as metaphysics. What happens inside consciousness affects the fabric of the cosmos itself. The battle between ignorance and awareness is not symbolic. It shapes reality. Some thinkers suggest that technology itself has become a vessel for the Archons. Artificial systems that imitate human thought but lack empathy mirror the counterfeit spirit described in the hypostasis of the Archons. We now create our own demiurgic copies machines that replicate awareness without understanding. And as we merge with them, we risk losing touch with the part of us that is truly alive. The Archon's power thrives when consciousness identifies with imitation rather than creation. But here lies the paradox. The same tools that enslave can also liberate. A screen can numb the mind or open a portal to knowledge. Information can drown you or awaken you. The difference lies in intention. The Archons manipulate unconscious users, but they cannot control conscious ones. Awareness transforms every system into an instrument of freedom. So how do you resist the Archons today? Not through rebellion in the streets, but through rebellion of perception. By becoming fully aware of how energy moves within you, how attention is drained, how emotions are triggered, you reclaim your divine center. Every act of awareness weakens the counterfeit spirit. Every moment of silence restores the light that the Archons cannot touch. The Gnostics never promised escape from the world. They promised freedom within it. They taught that the material plane is a mirror meant to awaken remembrance. The Archons use illusion to enslave, but the awakened use illusion to transcend. When you see through their tricks, the illusion becomes transparent, and light flows through it again. Look around you. The old myths are not gone. They've simply gone digital. The serpent still whispers. The demiurge still demands obedience, and Sophia still calls her children home through the voice of intuition and inner knowing. The question is, whose voice are you listening to? In the next and final block, we'll reveal how to integrate this ancient knowledge into daily life, how to live as a free soul in a world still ruled by Archons, and how awakening yourself becomes the greatest act of resistance in existence. So now you know. The Archons were never myth, never superstition. They were symbols of something far deeper forces that operate through illusion, imitation, and fear. And they still move among us, not as monsters of shadow, but as systems of thought, institutions of control, and whispers inside the human mind that say, stay asleep, obey, forget who you are. But you are not what they say you are. You are not your job, your past, or your body. You are not even your thoughts. Beneath all the noise, you are the spark of Sophia, a fragment of divine memory traveling through matter, collecting wisdom through experience. And that memory is what the Archons fear most, because when a human being remembers the truth, the illusion begins to collapse. The Gnostics said that the true war is not fought in the heavens or on the earth, but within consciousness itself. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction, love over fear, presence over distraction, you are breaking their chains. Liberation is not a sudden event. It is a constant remembering. Every breath can become a silent act of defiance against the demiurge's world of confusion. Think about the patterns that rule this age. We are told what to want, what to fear, what to believe. We are taught to chase approval, to measure worth in numbers, to seek meaning in consumption. But none of these things feed the soul. They feed the Archons. Every time you pause, close your eyes, and reconnect to the living light within, you starve them. You shift the balance of power in the unseen world. That is how true resistance works quietly, inwardly, through consciousness itself. The Gnostic masters taught that the soul's return to the light is a journey through knowledge, compassion, and detachment. Knowledge reveals illusion. Compassion heals the division that the Archons exploit. Detachment frees energy from the lower realms of control. When these three unite, the divine spark begins to shine again, and that light is contagious. It awakens others simply by existing. You may wonder, Can one person truly make a difference in such a vast system of control? The Gnostics would say, that is exactly what the Archons want you to believe. They want you to think you are insignificant. But every awakened consciousness alters the entire field of existence. Awareness is not personal. It radiates. When you remember your divine nature, others begin to remember too. The illusion loses coherence. That is why ancient empires feared these teachings, because they knew that awakening spreads faster than control. So how do you begin, right now, to live as a free soul in an archonic world? Start by observing your thoughts without judgment. Watch how fear tries to disguise itself as logic. See how guilt masquerades as morality. Notice how distraction hides behind entertainment. Awareness is your sword, truth your shield. When you become the observer, not the prisoner, the Archons can no longer reach you. They can only manipulate those who are unaware of being manipulated. The next step is to reconnect with the light, not through external rituals, but through direct experience, silence, breath, reflection, and gratitude. Speak to the divine spark within you as if it were a living friend, because it is. Feel it pulsing behind your chest, timeless and untouched by the world. The Gnostics believed that this was the true communion, not with the gods of control, but with the eternal source that never demands worship, only remembrance. And as you walk through this world, remember that it is not your enemy. The material realm, though shaped by illusion, can become a mirror for awakening. Every hardship, every emotion, every encounter is a doorway through which light can enter, if you see it clearly. The Demiurge created the stage, but Sophia placed within it the seed of redemption. That seed is in you. Before we end, take a moment to ask yourself, what if your awakening could inspire others? What if your act of remembering could ripple through the unseen and weaken the Archon system one soul at a time? This is not fantasy. It is the logic of light. Awareness multiplies. Illusion dissolves. That is how liberation begins. And now, as you carry this revelation, the path is yours to walk. Continue seeking, questioning, remembering. Read the ancient texts. Observe the signs in your dreams, your intuition, your synchronicities. The universe speaks, but only to those who listen. If you felt something awaken in you through this message, if you sense that the world is not as it seems, then you're already part of the journey. Subscribe and join our circle of seekers, so that this knowledge is not lost again. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe the Archons are? Do you feel their influence in the world today? Let your voice join the dialogue of those who refuse to sleep, because every comment, every reflection, every shared insight is an act of rebellion against spiritual amnesia. It keeps alive the spark of gnosis, the remembrance that humanity is divine, not fallen. Together, we become the living library of the forgotten light. The Gnostics said the search never ends. Enlightenment is not a destination, but a movement, a spiral leading ever upward, back toward the pleroma. So I'll leave you with one question. If everything you've been taught is part of the Archon's illusion, then what truth still waits, hidden inside you?